I think we've all had situations where we planned to do something but never actually got around to it. You tell yourself, well, tomorrow I'll definitely start, but tomorrow turns into the day after, then into the next week, and eventually that brilliant idea or important task just remains somewhere in the past. The most interesting thing is that the problem isn't that you're lazy or irresponsible. It's more likely that you just didn't set clear time boundaries for achieving that goal, the so called deadline. Let's remember a time when you had a really difficult and important task, maybe in university, school, or at work, and there was very little time left to complete it. In moments like these, you suddenly tap into all your strength, focus on the task, and start working. Yes, maybe reluctantly, maybe the night before the task or exam, but you get it done because you know there's no turning back. The deadline is burning, and you realize that it's now or never. And at that moment, hidden superpowers kick in. You find the time, the ideas, the resources, and do what once seemed almost impossible. But here's the question: why wait until you're in that state? Why not use all those superpowers right away, without the stress and sleepless nights? Why not take control of everything in advance? Hello, everyone. You're on the Minecraft Bro channel. As you've probably guessed, today we're going to talk about deadlines. The video will be very interesting and relevant, so I suggest we get right to it. But before we begin, just a quick reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel. So let's start by figuring out what the word deadline means. Simply put, a deadline is the final, ultimate time limit for something. It's the moment after which there's no more time, and the result is needed here and now. It's like the example I gave with the exam or some project you need to submit. If you miss the deadline, it often means failure. A failing grade on the exam, losing a client, or just the feeling that you've let yourself down. But let's look at it from another angle. The deadline is actually not your enemy, it's your helper. It gives you boundaries and structure. Without a deadline, the task can seem too vague, like an endless marathon. But with a deadline, there's a clear finish line that you're moving toward. Now, I want to share my own story about deadlines. When I was in school, I had a course on Photoshop where we edited photos and learned how to use basic photo editing tools. And towards the end of the semester, the teacher gave us a big project. We had to create a huge yearbook with pictures of all the students, teachers, and so on. At first, it seemed like a fun idea to go around taking photos, but it wasn't just about taking pictures. We also had to edit them and create an individual design for each page of the book. Plus, the design had to be connected to some movie. The book was called a yearbook, and it collected all the moments from the school year. By the way, I have that book in my hands right now. I've even taken a couple of photos. The teacher was really cool, but I just couldn't get myself to go around taking all these photos and coming up with ideas. I remember putting off the assignments because it all seemed so huge and tiring. It didn't seem that hard at first, just some photos, a bit of creativity, and a couple of design pages. But as usual, I kept procrastinating, telling myself I'll definitely start tomorrow, and weeks passed by. Of course, it was fun to hang out with friends and play games instead of working on the project. Then, just like I mentioned at the start, towards the deadline, I realized I barely had any time left. I wasn't in panic, but I did start seriously thinking about how I could get everything done on time and still do a good job. That's when the deadline became my friend. When time is really limited, it forces you to focus on your goals. You can't waste time on little things, and you start taking action. In my case, I quickly focused on the photos and the design, making the most of what I could do with the time I had left. In the end, yes, it wasn't perfect, but I got everything done and even added a few creative touches that the teacher actually liked. And here's the most interesting thing. When you really start working toward a deadline, you're surprised by how much you can accomplish in that limited time. It's like you switch to a different level of energy. Then, when you finish the task, you feel such relief and satisfaction, like the hardest part is over. And it's that feeling of relief when you realize you've managed to get everything done. Despite all these delays, there's something we need to use in our everyday lives. We often fear deadlines because we associate them with pressure and the possibility of not being able to finish what we need to do. But In reality, a deadline is not just stress, it's a powerful tool for focus. I totally understand how strange it feels to put ourselves in a box, but it's really important. I'm sure you guys understand perfectly well that when you have specific deadlines to achieve your goals, you work in completely different conditions. When there are clear deadlines, you start working with an energy that feels like you suddenly have superpowers. You stop procrastinating, you stop getting distracted by little things, and you focus on what really matters. Here's the key. A deadline helps eliminate all the uncertainty, turning a task into a clear and achievable goal. But there's another important point. Once you set a deadline to accomplish a goal, you can't change it. It's simply not allowed. Because if you keep pushing it to another supposedly definite date, you'll fall into the same procrastination trap, and it'll be hard to get out. It's like the promises we often make to ourselves. I'll do it tomorrow. But as practice shows, and from my own experience, if you constantly push the deadline, at some point, you won't take deadlines seriously anymore. Moreover, in these moments, you lose something very important: self-respect. So, in the future, when you set a goal for yourself, you won't believe that you can achieve it on time, and it becomes an endless cycle. You procrastinate, you push it, and then you feel like you won't manage it again. It's important to understand that if you set a deadline, it has to be 100% firm and mandatory. Another important point is to remember that a deadline is not something terrifying that forces you to run around in panic. It's more like a tool that helps us establish boundaries. When you have clear deadlines, you immediately understand that time has come, and that's it. No more procrastinating. You don't need to worry about not finishing on time or doing everything at the last minute. You simply make the decision: this is important. Now I'm going to do it. For example, I notice that when I have a clear plan for the day, and I know that by 6 p.m., I need to have a certain number of tasks done, I start working with much more enthusiasm. Even though almost every day something goes wrong, like I get sick, have a sore throat, or just don't feel like doing something, these are just excuses. When the deadline is approaching, no matter how bad you feel, you know you still have to take action. I guarantee you that despite all these difficulties, when you lie down in bed at night, you'll feel so proud of yourself. Your self-belief will increase so much that every time you set new goals, you'll know they're achievable and that everything is in your hands. So that's it. Lastly, I want to say, guys, set deadlines, move towards your goals, and don't forget that the best moment to start is always now. Stop saying, I'll start tomorrow. Today is too late. I'm tired. I'll do it next week. No, start right now. And that's all from me. Have a great day. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we'll see each other again. Bye-bye.